Jim, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
All right, very good. I just wanted to be here early. I know the recording's already started, but I just wanted to be here early, and my internet, I hope, will stay stable while I'm traveling. Amber, are you there? Jim, is Amber there?
He just left to go to her office, grab something real fast, sir.
Okay. Can you let me know when she's back?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Wait, I can't hear you.
I can't hear you.
Oh, wait, now I can hear you.
I can hear the both of y'all.
Can you hear me? Test 1, 2. Uh-oh.
My volume's up. Can you hear me?
Yes, yours, it's crackly, but I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
Hmm. Can you hear me now? Hi, Amber. I can't hear you either, Amber. Amber, can you hear us? We can't hear you, though.
That's because I was muted.
Oh, got it. You're there. Perfect. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how's it going? I've kind of
Good.
lost my voice, but
Oh, well, hang
I'll
in
try
there.
to get it.
Yes, I will say I like speaking to people when they come in. It's dual purposes. I speak and then I get a chance for you to test your mic and audio.
Great. Jim and April are bringing everyone in, or the work group in from the lobby, and working on unmuting them so we can get everyone in that needs to be here first before we allow the rest of the public, which I think is going to be rather large today.
Miss Beavers, are you there? Hello, welcome.
I am, thank you.
Perfect, great. I like to test people's audio, make sure we can hear them. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Did I miss the introduction of who James is?
He's on instructional material. He's in the same bureau as Amber. He's
helping me out with the tech.
He does every
he's
meeting.
been in all of these meetings, helping me with all of the tech issues, or not issues, but all the tech that needs to happen kind of behind the scenes. And then April Ivory, who is on the instructional materials team, is also helping me out today.
Okay, I just didn't notice their pictures before.
Yeah, Jim helps with all of this, and he's
Hey,
really on.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
We can hear you, Jennifer.
Lost her again.
Oh, she's
I
frozen.
think
I think her internet might be.
See any other. Gosh,
Good afternoon.
Hello, everyone. We're just working on getting the work group in the room and unmuting cameras and mics to get set up before the meeting. We'll go ahead and get started with everyone in about 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Julie.
Hello.
I need Terry Adams.
Miss Pippin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good old technology for you. It works on my smartphone, but not my smart computer.
I hear you on that one. I'm at a meeting in St. Pete and people were asking me questions about technology, and I said, I don't know. You're the wrong person. They think, oh, you're young enough to know. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like,
Right.
that's why I never upgrade the phone when I have to supposed to upgrade, because I'm like, I don't know how to make the regular one work. I'm not gonna be able to make a new upgraded version work.
Exactly. It's like, will I still be able to get on Teams? Probably not, you know?
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know I'm talking a little bit early. Some people are still waiting in the lobby. Everybody is getting admitted into this room at this time. Work group members, you should have been unmuted, but it is hard to see you in the list of everybody that's in here. So if you are work group members, if you are not unmuted, please raise your hand. And my team helping me here, I see Amelia's hand up, Amelia Zukowski. We'll go ahead and unmute you. So I'll go ahead and get started while they're working on that. Just a quick introduction. This is the Library Media Work Group. I know we have a very large number of public on the call today. Public, you will have a chance to speak at the end of the meeting. We'll reserve the last 5 or 10 minutes for you to be able to share your comments about the work that we've been doing today and thus far. Just a quick introduction. My name is Amber Bombach. I'm the Director of Library Media and Instructional Materials. And the work group has been introduced at previous meetings. I believe this is our 9th meeting, 9th or 10th. So we've done quite a lot of work. I'm really proud of the work that we have done thus far. Our PowerPoint is, I feel like it's looking pretty good. We have a few things to wrap up and hopefully we can close this down and turn it in and be done and have a product that we're all proud of. So just a work group, and this is especially to you, before we kind of get started, it's been one idea that we had is that because our face-to-face meeting went so well the last time that we met here in Tallahassee, we are considering offering another face-to-face meeting. And I know it's super last minute. I know it's bad timing with the holidays and everything, but the date that we're looking at is December 20th. And it's possible that this work could be done electronically instead, but I just kind of wanted to get your feedback. What do you all think about a possible face-to-face meeting in Tallahassee on December 20th? To close out the training thus far, we would take a look at the product that we have at that point and say, you know, are we good with this? Are we making any further revisions to this document? Go ahead.
I'd be willing to do that if the group wanted to do it.
This is Jamie. I'm unavailable that day. I'm having surgery and I've put this on off long enough, so I can't continue to. But I mean, okay, obviously still meet.
And that's completely fine,
Sorry.
Jamie. This is, I know that this is last minute. I know districts are closed that week. I will also be on vacation that week. So, but if it needs to happen, we can make it happen.
Well, I'd rather be on vacation.
I hear you. I hear you.
This is Michelle. Jarrett, I'm sorry. Is there a way we could do that electronically? Just because I know that so many people are on break and many people may already have plans. Like I know our school district's done on the 16th. And so lots of people have plans to take vacation that week before break. And so traveling to Tallahassee would be a burden on that. I'm certainly willing to do it electronically on any date during that week, but traveling up to Tallahassee right now is really it's a burden on a lot of us that already have plans.
I hear that. Yeah, and we knew that would be a concern. I just wanted to throw it out to see what the work group thought, and we can go from there.
I'm available, but I mean, depends on what you guys say.
I'm sorry, who said that?
I think that was Michelle Beavers. She was on.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christy Humberger. I agree with Michelle Jarrett that for me, getting up to Tallahassee that week and back down to Naples would not be in the best interest of my vacation or my plans, but I am more than welcome to be available electronically or even travel up to Tallahassee this coming week versus the vacation week.
I think this coming week, it would be too short of notice because we have to publicly notice it. So the shortest amount of time that we could do would be that week of the 19th. So I don't, unfortunately, I don't think we can make it happen for next week.
But Amber, do we know? I mean, I would have to just ask. I don't remember the number of days. Like, do we remember the number of days?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
We think it's 14, but
Okay.
we would have to check to make sure.
We have the meeting scheduled for next week from 1 to 2 tentatively. Can we use that day to possibly do Tallahassee, or just because it's, more time, would it have to be noticed?
I doubt that the media specialists would be able to get the time off with that short of notice, and everyone else as well.
But I think it's a good question. What I would say is, if this group, like, to me, I guess my frame is a little different, right? This work is so important for us to finish. This work group has been engaged in a lot of hard work. It is important to get it buttoned up. And we know, like, for you all to have a full day versus just an hour, because the reality is it's not even a full hour that you get on these. There's public comment. There's, just our work group of introduction, whatever we have to figure out all the other stuff. To dedicate a day or a good 3/4 of a day, I would encourage the work group to really think about how to potentially build some flexibility, right? And to say, like, if this work is that important, is there a way we can make it happen? I would also say that I would have us at the department to actually ask the question and say, is it possible, right, to change that from in person? I would encourage work groups to not close out any options, but to say this work is so important that dedicating the time to getting it right and getting it finished is what, and if folks can't make it, they can't make it, right? That's a reality that happens in every meeting we're in, right? Like, I'm traveling and I missed our own senior leadership meeting, so I missed those updates, but someone's going to take notes for me. But I'm traveling in a hotel. It's that important for me to join this one. So I would just challenge the work group to be thinking in that manner.
Is it also possible for us to schedule a meeting that's longer than an hour? I'm happy to, spend time. I'm happy to spend the whole day online with us, figuring this out and doing the best training for the people in Florida. Because a 1 hour meeting is time prohibitive.
I agree. I think I was going to say the same thing, Michelle.
Yeah, or even if we have to do an evening meeting that's publicly noticed, because now the librarians are out of, school, people, as parents that are working, we're out of work. So maybe even, into, starting at maybe 1 to go into like 6 or 7 or something like that.
Dr. Burns, do you know if we could amend the public notice to make it longer for next week's meeting? We could say starting at 1, open until business is done or whatever, and that gives us that flexibility, or are we not allowed to amend at this point?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we would have to ask, and I think I hear the work group, being committed to saying there are options out there, right? Whether it's I heard several options, so I think is wonderful. Whether you take one of these and you make it longer, right? Because we all just admitted we don't even get a full hour when we're together on these. So is there a way to take that notice and make this longer? So I think we need to go back to our legal team who helps us craft those, and we need to ask that question. So Amber, I would have you in April capture that. The second one is there a way, I think we need to look at all options, right? Because we are under a time deadline, right? We all understand that we're under a time deadline we have whatever, 6 minus 30, it's about 24 days or something, right? Or is it 31? I might do the math wrong, right? To get this finished. And we've got even Christmas in there, so you lose a day. So is there, can you flip it to in person? I think what I would encourage is for us to go back and ask legal those questions, and then to be able to, send that information back out to the members of the work group and let them do that kind of doodle poll to say whether it's in person or virtual, and then the time they could potentially click like they did before and be able to provide their input. But we will have to get some of those questions answered because we'll need the experts to help us answer those. That's my.
Okay, then we do have quite a lot of. Sorry, we do have quite a lot to talk about today. So at this time, I'd like to move on. I would prefer to consider, let's extend the time next week if we are able to, or possibly, work on it electronically. I mean, face-to-face is an option as well, but I think from what I'm hearing, it would be a lot more difficult for people to travel that week, right before Christmas. All right, so I'm going to, a quick agenda today. We've talked about future meetings. We're going to discuss bullets that 3 work group members sent in for consideration for addition to the training, and that is members Julie, Jennifer, and Michelle Beavers. So I had them write up quick bullets. We're gonna take a look at those. I'll let them explain them a little bit. We'll take comments from the work group. We'll see if there's anything that can be added. Again, we're gonna move fast today just because we do have things to do. After that, we're gonna go ahead and review the training. Work group members were sent the training last week. You've had almost about a week, maybe like 5 or 6 days to take a look at it. I'm not gonna go page by page, but I'll ask you, for edits as we go. So hopefully we can get those changes addressed as well. Okay, so let's see, I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so you should be able to see, hang on 1 second. There we go. You should be able to see my Word document up on your screen. And this was, we're going to start with Julie. I'm just going in the order that they were sent in to me. And the assignment, just so members of the public know, the assignment was to give me a bulleted list of additional items that you would like to see in the training that is not already there. And then the second option, and this was completely optional, is to include items that you would like to address with senior leadership that are outside the scope of the training, so that we could have some items that we're not necessarily going to discuss today, but we will send those items to senior leadership so that they are aware. Also a note here, all 3 members also sent slides as kind of further explanations of these bullet points. We do not have time to share those slides today, but I want to assure you that all 3 sets of slides will be shared with senior leadership, so they are aware of everything that you have submitted. Okay, Julie, I'm going to let you go ahead and explain your bullets real quick.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Pardon my sniffles. I'm getting over a sinus infection. Amber, I was just, as I was looking at the draft deck that we completed together, I thought in some ways it might be helpful to include sort of a summary slide. Let me back up for a second. I think it's still a good idea to say districts are responsible for creating the policies and end it there, and leave the districts with their own level of autonomy to develop those policies. If we are going to include more directive information, I think that it would be helpful to have a slide that says guiding principles for those district policies, which is sort of this first bulleted piece of information. And just to give I got a lot of this data from the ALA selection and reconsideration policy toolkit for public school and academic libraries, and also for the National Coalition against Censorship Model Challenge Procedures. So I tried to look for folks who have already done the research and the good work to put together these guiding principles. So that would be my suggestion if we're going to elaborate on what those district policies might look like. I think it would be helpful to provide a few more details just to make sure district policies are checking all of these boxes. And then the second slide, which to back up for a second, the guiding policies for guiding principles for district policies. I think as we're going through the slides, it might be clear where those might go, but I think it would be after the parental rights slide. And then for incorporating parent and stakeholder input, it would make sense to me to put this later on in the training materials. So I just, in some of our previous meetings, we had included some examples of district policies, excuse me, including parental opt-out and parental opt-in. And I think when we met together, we agreed as a group that it's better to just say you need to have some stakeholder and parental input, but to leave it there. But I guess my point would be is if we want to provide examples for policies that districts might consider, I would want to be clear that this is not an exhaustive list. These, each idea might have pros and cons, but I think it might be especially helpful to include kind of like a toolkit, especially for some of the smaller districts and counties that have fewer library media resources available. So I just included 4, parental opt-out, some ideas on how to make a media review committee a really functional and helpful group to provide input on selection of materials, ways to ensure balance on media review committees. And then personally, I don't think parental opt-in is good, but I felt like it would be naive to leave it off the list because it is, it's a policy that some districts might want to consider. And I don't have any items that I would like to discuss with senior leadership. So I'll stop there.
Great, thank you, Julie. So work group, I'm going to open it up to you quickly. Would you consider adding these slides or one of these slides, or what are your comments about these slides?
I personally like the idea of giving some guidance to the districts about how to handle some of this information, but it's going to be hard deciding what goes in there as a group.
Julie, I think you did a good job with most of this. Personally, I disagree with the parental opt-out just because there is parents and even media center specialists at this point that don't know the content of all of the books. So to say, I want to opt out of, A, B, and C, they may not know all the content on there, or even the parents may not know. We can agree to disagree with that. I absolutely respect that you did this. And a lot of the bullets that you put in your bullet points are in statute. So I agree, if they are already in statute, we could absolutely add it to the training. So thank you for that work, Julie.
Jennifer, I just want to respond. So if I'm remembering correctly at our in-person meeting, we did, I mentioned we did have some slides that had parental opt-in and opt-out. And because members of our group, it's hard coming up with the list, because if you include the list, even though you can say districts may consider, you don't have to do these, just the mere presence of some of these policies coming from a state training, even though they're just ideas, just the presence of them in the training is a little bit prescriptive. So I think the compromise that we made on the 3rd was to not include opt-out or opt-in, because I think we have some pretty strong feelings on both of those. So I just wanted to point out that we kind of did make that change because it was challenging to come to consensus on what to include.
If we do the bulleted list, I do agree that we need to share both viewpoints. So a variety of viewpoints is in there.
You mean as far as the opt-in, opt-out, those viewpoints?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having trouble like unmuting and muting myself back over and again. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, and I agree. I think if we're including one of those policies, we need to either include both or include none. That feels fair to me. So I know the other slides mention opt-in as well. Can we, as a work group, come to a consensus? Do we want to include opt-in and opt-out, or do we want to leave it as it is and that it's not currently in the training?
Could you show the slide that this is in regards to? That might assist us.
Yeah. All right, it takes me just a second to find it, to open my other thing here. Okay, you should be able to see that now. And does anyone know which slide number it is?
I thought, well, parental rights I thought was like 11, but stakeholder was closer to 30, I think.
Parental rights is 12 on the deck that I have, slide 12.
The new deck, yes.
Yeah.
And I think it would better fit stakeholders is what I heard.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
It seems to me it would, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking out loud. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm trying to figure out like where it fits in with parental rights. It fits in with district policies, but I was looking to see if there's a place that's specific to district policies, because this would be an example of options for district policies,
Yeah.
wherein districts are required to have a challenge policy. Districts are, you know, all of those things. And then an opt-in / opt-out is an option for districts.
Okay. I think we do have a slide on district policies. I'm not sure where it is, but
Oh, how about number 17? Districts
okay.
must establish and maintain school libraries.
That's what I was looking at too, Michelle. Because then it goes into the collection development process.
I will say the struggle, and so I could tell, I could go in a long thing about my history and how school libraries saved me, and many people have heard that already. I feel so strongly that all students have access to a school library, and I do think it's part of a federal policy in ensuring that there's a free and appropriate public education for all of our students. So that when I had a mom who worked 3 jobs, my mom did not have time to opt out or opt into a library. My mom was trusting the professionals in the building to ensure that I had access to what I needed. I know that there has been some mistrust that has happened throughout the state, which I think is what has led us to here. But I think these conversations and this training is going to help rebuild that trust so that everyone in the state is sure of what's happened. So I'm kind of going on record saying that, but if we as a group are deciding we're going to have an opt-in / an opt-out, that's fine. I do think it would be some, you know, in with the district, you know, requirements and things.
Yeah, again, this is not something we would be deciding at the state level. That is way beyond the scope of this work group. This would be a district policy. So in the slides, we are either saying districts may choose to have opt-in or opt-out policies in place. And that is not something that they have to do statutorily. It's an option that they have.
And just to kind of interject, and as I support everything Michelle just said, but most of us are looking at it a lot deeper than that. And I feel I see where it goes with the district policies, but I also see where it goes with the parents' rights and education, because that's why we're doing it. And many of us are doing like permission slips for our YA, which was already a best practice and already something we were doing. But we're also doing like access levels so that we can honor parents' rights specifically. So we are doing those things. We do have those procedures that we're implementing or working on implementing. So I do think it goes deeper. And I think that while there's nothing that requires us to have permission slips or access levels or anything like that, I do think it all goes together. And I think the why behind the what is that it's so that we can honor those parents' rights in education.
Unfortunately, though, what's happening across the state is these people are opting out of, let's say, sexually explicit content or pornography, and then those books are still getting into the hands of children. Or parents aren't filling out the permission slips because they're not aware of the permission slips, or they don't know, the content that's in the library, and they're trusting, like you said, the media center specialists. So when they're opting out, of certain things, they're still getting in the hands of children. So
I don't think, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ruth. No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I know I've heard the concerns and I understand them. Like we say, okay, well, somebody may pass it over on the bus, or somebody may hand it over in a classroom. Like we have discussed those kind of things, but no policy we make is going to change that. Those things are still going to happen regardless of what permission we put on things. Those things are still still have the potential of happening. Okay. So, you know, and I think that's the point of this training, is because it is so new and everybody is waiting. I mean, we just came back from our conference. There are so many districts out there waiting and so many librarians waiting for this training, and this is their guidance. And so that is our opportunity to say that, you know, for your district, you need to decide what's going to work for you. You need to either have permission slips, policies, opt-in, opt-out, and that is going to be different in every place. You know, and then that's the point where you take it, where you're vocal at your level with your county, with what you want to happen in your school district as a parent.
Thank you for that. I'm going to take a comment from Amelia. She's got her hands raised, and then we're going to have to move on, but I have noted that it seems, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like we're okay. Is that correct, with adding opt-in, opt-out to either slide 17 or the parental rights slide?
I'm not okay with it, to be quite honest with you.
Michelle.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Michelle, you're not okay with, you don't want to add opt-in, opt-out?
Either one of them. I spoke with a lawyer last night before last, and she told me that lawyers do disagree, and this lawyer disagrees with our DOE lawyer. And I don't want to put my name on something that's going to put children at harm. And if that book, any book that has pictures in it like Gender Queer, is on a shelf, by definition, when they open the book and they look at a picture randomly, they are exposed to harm, period, full stop. At that moment, they have not read the whole book. They see a picture of a, excuse my language, blowjob. They are exposed at that moment. And when they show it to their buddy standing next to him, the other parent's child is exposed at that moment.
Okay.
And that's okay to me.
Michelle, I'm sorry to cut you off. For purposes of this discussion, we're only talking about putting opt-in or opt-out in the training for district's consideration.
Correct.
You're opposed.
I'm totally, after speaking to the lawyer, I'm not going to be putting my name on that. We can submit 2 different trainings. I can submit my slides separately, but I'm liable for that suggestion to these parents and these districts if I put my name on that. And I'm not willing to risk these children, because at the moment they open that book and see that picture, they are in harm.
Okay, thank you for stating your opinion. We're gonna go ahead and move ahead. So
Wait, can I pause? I'm sorry. I need some clarity. So when Michelle said she's not, so Michelle, can I ask what you would put? I guess I feel like I don't know that answer of what Michelle Beavers would put when you say you're opposed. Michelle, can I ask what it would say?
What it would say is that these books are not allowed in the library, full stop, period. That they are not allowed. And I have a list. I sent a PowerPoint to Amber, and in that list, I put in there, I spelled out everything could possibly be in a book that I'm aware of that should not be in our libraries. And I don't know if you want me to read that list out loud, because
That's fine. I just was curious about the opt-in, opt-out. Got it. Okay.
But I think if this material is in the book and it is in our library, and we have to figure out, should we let kids see it? Should we not let kids see it? At that point, it shouldn't be in our library. That's just it. It shouldn't be in. We need to use common sense and what that law was supposed to mean, and not dance around this anymore. And after speaking to a lawyer who completely helped me understand what it is I'm doing when I do this, I'm not willing to do it.
Okay, that's Michelle, the other thing. Amber, can I pause for a second? The other thing you said before we moved on, somebody had their hand raised and that person didn't speak. So I feel bad that, because somebody even still has their hand raised. Like you had said someone was going to talk after Michelle before we moved on.
Amelia was going to speak.
Okay.
Thanks. Sorry. So I was going to say about parental choice. I think it's a good opportunity to have the options there, because of parental choice. That was all I was going to say. And we need to make sure that we hear all parents' choices and hear and honor all students. So I think we need to keep focused on that. And while we might have our thoughts and our viewpoints, we need to think of options and choices, just like we have done consistently. That's really what parental rights is about, correct? The rights of all.
No, it's about protecting children. And that's what we're talking about doing here, is protecting children, not worrying about if one particular parent in particular wants that book in the library. Doesn't trump the rights of the parents who don't want it exposed.
Yes, the laws and statutes that protect children trump parental choice. We have to follow the laws and the statutes as it relates to library books and curriculum. And that comes before parental choice. We can't break the law because of a parental choice. Just like you can't abuse your child and say it's parental rights. You cannot not feed or clothe your child and call it parental rights. Same thing with the library books. If it's sexually explicit or pornographic against state statutes, everything that we've discussed, the 847.01.012, we cannot say, well, just because that parent wants sexually explicit content or pornographic content in the hands of their child doesn't mean that we can break those laws and statutes and put it in front of children.
There
to
is
c-
that
to
man.
co-
I'm sorry, Julie, go ahead. I didn't see you were speaking.
Chris, go ahead.
Me? Okay. Well, I like having the options there because keep in mind that parental choice is beyond this issue. Parental choice is also about kids who don't want their kids reading magic. As you know, those of us librarians who are back around when Harry Potter rolled around first came to, there's a variety of things that parents will want to have input about. So to give options, it's a bigger issue than just what we're talking about here of letting parents have input for. So, somebody mentioned access levels. There's actually more options than opt-in and opt-out. There's permission slip forms, there's access levels, and to give the options to those districts, I think is important.
And I agree, those parents that don't want their children to read about magic or tarot cards or things like that, absolutely, they have the right to, tell the librarians or their classroom teacher that they're not allowed to read those books. But magic and things like that are not against state statutes or laws. So that would go into parental choice where they would choose and say, hey, I don't want my child to read about this or, that. But the state statutes and the law still have to apply when we're looking at training for the state and training for all districts.
There is no law that mandates sexually explicit material needs to be in our library, and so it simply doesn't. I don't know how to more clearly say that, but these kids do not need to be exposed to it. It's just that simple, and the law was meant to do that, but we've allowed the little word "and" to take over this entire issue.
All right. So I'm hearing we're not reaching a consensus on the opt-in, opt-out policies. I just wanted to make a note that we, at the state level, we do not have a banned books list. Michelle, your suggestion of, not including any of those materials is not something that we can do in this work group. And that would be a suggestion for leadership that I can, that I believe that you've already included on your slides. So go ahead.
I wasn't suggesting that we give them a list of books. I'm saying we give them a list of things that if they're in the book, it should not be there. Not that we give them a list of books, but if you say, let's say sadomasochism, if that's in a book, it should not be on our shelf. Pedophilia, if that is in a book, a descriptive detail of an adult doing inappropriate things to a child, which is also illegal, if we have that in a book, it should not be in our shelves. It should be as simple as that. We can work as a work group and we can come up with these things, but I believe we're at an impasse. I don't believe that these librarians are going to in any way agree to any of this. And so I think it's going to be a shorter meeting than we think, because it's just, we're not going to agree on it.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next set of, hang on 1 second, let me open it.
May I ask a question while you're looking for your information? With session coming up, if there's any legislation that passes and the governor signs that revises any of the current Florida statutes, how does that, especially if we're citing them in this training, how does this training continue? Do we need to reconvene in a year again and revise it continuously? How is this?
That's That's a great question. And it would be, our legal team and, legislative folks would tell us like, hey, you need to look at this statute. It's been, legislation revised it. We would then, I'm assuming we would then take a look at the training and see if anything needs to be revised at that point.
Yeah, I agree with Amber. I mean, this is no different than the other work group that we have, continuing to update what we know, whether it's documents, training, instructional materials, right? Continuing, the notion of continuous improvement is really embedded in what we do. So if there were changes, right, and I certainly don't have a crystal ball, but if there were legislative changes that would impact the training, then I would say yes, right? I think it's important for us to come back and look and make sure that any trainings that we're providing, that they follow the law, they follow the statute. And so if a statute were changed, I think we would do exactly what we would get a work group back together and be able to look and say, here are what the new laws are. A perfect example of that, or with our civics and character education. So our civics work group a couple of years ago got together and rewrote all of our civic standards, right? Then we had legislation from this past session where it talks about the teaching of civic and character education. So a new work group, people were invited to be part of a new work group to once again look at our civic standards to meet the new law that was put into place. And that's what we always do, is come back and make sure that anything that we're providing, that it always aligns with the law. So I think that'd be a normal way of work for us.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, moving on to the second set of bullets, and these are from Jennifer Pippin. Jennifer, do you want to explain these real quick?
Yeah.
Before we do that, I'm sorry, Amber. For those of us that have aged like myself, can you make that bigger? I can't see it. I can't figure out how to make it bigger on my screen. So that'd be super helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so while she's doing that, so my first bullet is books filtered for keywords or phrases before purchase. So I know we discussed this before at the federal level, like for example, when we were sending our slides to the Department of Education and the Media Center specialist previously, they were getting blocked for sexually explicit content, graphic content, things like that. I know we discussed before, doing a filter of that sort that is already put in place, not reinventing the wheel on a state level, but just following those federal guidelines. If they would get blocked through the Department of Education or the Media Center specialists on this call, to not allow them into curriculum, to not allow them on the shelves in the libraries for children. I think this is so important, and it's already done. So we would just have to figure out the technology or the way to do it to filter that for curriculum and libraries, because it's already being done on a federal level. My second bullet is only purchase books that teach abstinence from sexual activity outside of marriage as expected for the standard for 1003.46, which is the health education statute. Again, this has nothing to do with my religion. I didn't make this statute. I didn't vote on this statute. I'm just saying this as a parent. In finding this statute, we were told that this only applies to health education. But if a child is looking at something in the curriculum that is against this statute, or they pick up a library book that does have something sexually graphic, whether they're doing it or receiving it or watching a group of people doing it, that is against this health statute. 1003.46. And in my slides that I provided to Amber and DOE leadership, it went into greater detail of what the actual statute said and everything like that. So any of these library books that we're discussing, and I think this committee agrees on 90% of what we've already done. It's this 10% where the pornography and the sexually explicit content and the understanding of the definitions and laws that's doing this. So I think this is one of those statutes too that, to what point does this go into what we are discussing with our work group? And then my next bullet is the only way that I personally, as a mom, as a parent, as a taxpayer, would be okay with a parental opt-in would be for everything that's listed there. So health class curriculum. I know some districts in the state do not have that. They're just doing the sex education class. So if they're going to be discussing with children STDs, non-sexual anatomy, talking about vaginas and penises in a non-sexual form, I think that should have a parental opt-in across the state. glorification and support or promoting of cannibalism. That's in some of the library books here in my county. Heavy drug use, alcohol abuse, tobacco use, promoting suicide, bullying and violence. And again, not just mentioning, hey, he was smoking a cigarette, but saying, hey, doing cocaine and having sex is awesome. And we have that in a lot of books that we've, seen across the state. So not the act of actually doing it, but promoting it and the glorification of it across the state. So for me, that's the only way that I would be okay with an opt-in. Obviously, nothing against state statute or laws, no sexually explicit content or pornography if it as a whole, is okay. And then, of course, we've been saying it since the beginning. I believe Michelle Jarrett said it in the first meeting that only the media center specialists were in and not the parents, that she wanted definitions. And I still agree with her today for pornography, harmful to minors, obscenity. And I'm going to also add literary value. I think those terms and definitions apply to our work. And I think that 10% of what we haven't agreed on, because it's not defined, is creating, the friction in this group. And I think everybody wants the same thing, but achieving it and having these definitions would be so much easier. So there's nothing outside of the scope of training that I would like to bring to leadership. Just those things. And all of those things are not a surprise. We've discussed these before. We've brought these before. They could be done public records requests through our emails and such. So I hope that we could add some or all of these things, or I would love to hear the discussion of the other committee members to see how, maybe we could work this in, into our training.
Okay, work group, any comments?
Glorification, what exactly is that meaning to you? Is it just the mention? I mean, you said the mention of smoking a cigarette, but to me, glorification is might be something different from you. So could you give me an example?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. No. So smoking a cigarette, there's nothing wrong with that. Or like we've talked about, a woman breastfeeding her baby. That's not, sexually explicit. I'm talking about saying, yes, cannibalism is good and you should do this. Or, when you're reading in a library book, if they are, doing cocaine, and glorifying cocaine, and in that book at the end, when children are done reading that they think that doing cocaine is okay, or drinking alcohol as a minor because they're having raging parties. One of these books that we have in my district, they're having parties every weekend, and these teenagers are drinking alcohol underage, and they're glorifying it to make it look like, yes, this is what you should be doing on the weekends. And then there's nothing at the end of the book where they get in trouble or somebody gets hurt and they stop having these parties. So what I mean by glorification and support of is making these things that are illegal for minors to do in books or in curriculum. I would like to have a parental opt-in, because to my knowledge, it's not against state statute or laws to have something like cannibalism in a book, but having that parental opt-ins to say, so, for my children specifically, yes, I'm okay with them reading about heavy drug use and it being glorified or, promoting that. So for me, again, the glorification of making it look like this is a good idea, this is what we should be doing. And again, in a lot of these instances, it's okay to, use a gun and go kill a law enforcement officer, things like that, having that in books and curriculum. For me, I would want a parental opt-in, if that's something that, the work group would, want to have in the hands of children. Because again, to my knowledge, it's not against state statute or laws to have that material. Does that answer your question, Christy?
It does, Jennifer. Thank you.
Well, and I see the problem in terms of how are you defining glorification, because I'm aware of some books that have some of those, but I wouldn't say that they're glorifying them. I think the books do turn it around and do talk about that it's problematic, and so it could be what we're talking about, very different books here. But so the problem with this is, how do you define? Even though I understand where you're coming from, the maintenance, and I mean, that's where the challenge process has to come in, that you challenge that's why we have a challenge process, because it's very hard to figure out which viewpoint is going to be correct in that. And that's why that's why we try to find this stuff out beforehand with our reviews that we use. But that's also why we have the challenge process. So I don't know how that could be done in a what you're suggesting could be done in a practical perspective, because it's like Go Ask Alice is certainly not promoting drug use. It's about the anti. So how do we land on some of these types of different titles? And so I just don't know how that could be done in a practical sense without really looking at the individual books.
Sure, and I agree with that. And I know what book you're talking about, where they take her keys away, or they don't take her keys away at the end, and she gets into a car accident and she passes away. So that's not glorification or supporting. That's actually a good moral to the story, where they can see that, listen, drinking and driving, the friends or family members should have taken the keys. So for me, that's not glorification and supporting. That's actually a really good story to show, listen, if you don't help your family and friends and you drink and drive, this is what can happen. So, and again, if the work group doesn't agree with this, I'm just, if we're looking at an opt-in, opt-out, this for me would be the only thing that I think that an opt-in would be appropriate, because some parents may not want their children to have that. And to my knowledge, this isn't against state statute or laws, but they may not want to have their, middle schooler reading about, shooting up cocaine or meth, or, again, killing their neighbor, with violence and things like that. And again, these are all books that, we have in our school district here, that it's not against, legislation. So, they're on the shelves, and, we just don't want children to think that that's okay and think that's the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Anything else quickly about this, what's on the screen right now?
Amber, do we have one more slide?
We do.
Okay, I'll wait.
I'll just say one thing really quickly. It's in statute that media centers must provide library media collections must be based on reader interest, support of standards, and the academic needs of the faculty. So I think we have to be very mindful of that reader interest part. That's where that self-selected reading comes in. So yes, one of the purposes of a school library media center is to support curriculum, absolutely. But the second one is to provide books for reader interest. So we have to make sure that we're providing books that are reader interest that do follow statute. I mean, absolutely we want to continue to follow statute, but we need to remember that reader interest piece in there when we're purchasing books, which I believe, media specialists that I know are phenomenal at that. So just keeping that in mind, that we can't just support curriculum. That's one piece of it. But additionally, there is reader interest in self-selected reading that has to be included.
And I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. And as long as we're following the laws and statutes, absolutely, that's very important.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next set of and last set of bullet points. And these are from Michelle Beavers. Michelle, you want to explain these real quick?
Yes, it looks like autocorrect did not help me when I spoke some of this. Okay, so I guess I didn't know what I was talking about. So, I think I pretty much stated what's on my mind. The keywords search, I think, is a really good idea, because it's a system we already have in place. And no, it's not going to tell you that book is good or bad, but it will give you an idea that maybe there's some material in that book we need to look at more closely. So it's just a basically like a net to say, okay, well, this is stuck here, so let's see what's in there that could be bad, and give you a little bit idea of what to view. The crowdsource that we're talking about, when I went back and remember when we got these slides, we were in a room for 6 or 7 hours. And we had to look at all this material quickly and absorb it quickly. And when I started actually delving into some of these peer-reviewed sites, I was quite disappointed on the fact that most of them have a really large bias in them. So I'm not comfortable telling people, yes, just look at peer-reviewed sites. I think we need to open that up and have our peer-reviewed sites equal to our crowdsourced sites. And I had some great slides to show, but we didn't share those. So I don't have that background to show everybody right now, because it wasn't shared with you guys. So I think that's one of my things that I would change on our suggestions for librarians. And the hard line of, I'm sorry, I kind of went from the bottom up because I'm looking at it differently, but having books removed, if they have harmful content, I don't think we should just remove them. That should just be it. We're done with that, and move on to books that are good for our kids and that have great literary value. And that was one of the things that I think is really our sticking point here is we're talking about serious literary value, and we don't have a definition for that. And that's what I would like to find, because a lot of the stuff can be removed immediately if we could just prove that it has doesn't have serious literary value, not literary value, but serious literary value, what the law says. And I can tell you, looking at some of these books, they don't have serious literary value. They might have literary value to some, but it's not serious. And I think we need to fixate on getting a definition in line with that. So in those slides, I also I feel that if we just simply, if we can't get anybody to define pornography, sexually explicit, and give us those definitions, then what we can do is make a list of things that should not be on our shelves. And like I was listing a few ideas, sadomasochism, bestiality, incest, those are 3 that are even illegal. So, you know, if we can start there and just start listing things, if this is in a book, it doesn't need to be on our library shelves. It could be that simple of just simply having a list down if this is in the book. And I'm not talking about a fade to black moment of sex where it's an innuendo and they go into a room and the door's shut. I'm talking about describing very explicitly body parts and where they go and et cetera for pages. So there's a misconception that we're trying to ban books. Nobody's trying to ban books. We're trying to make sure they're age appropriate for these children in our schools, and the law is supposed to protect them. And right now we're stuck on the word and serious literary value. That's it. That's the whole problem here. And I can tell you these books do not have, I'm not a librarian, but I know literature that's good. And a lot of these books are not good literature. And the rest of it's for the DOE to look at. But I feel strongly that we can do that. We can list this out and we can give them real guidance. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Work group, quick comments about Michelle's bullet points or the bullet points in general. I guess what I'm asking here is there anything that you've seen in these bullet points that we can add to the training?
I'm going to say that I think most of what was in the slides today steps outside of the scope of the work group. And I feel strongly that we need to stick to our state statute and what it's requiring us to do. Yeah, if we, and respectfully, if we can't come to an agreement on making suggestions for districts for opt-in, opt-out, then we just don't put it in there because we're not required to as part of this training. That, I think that was just a thought to help guide librarians across the state, but it does step outside of the scope of this training. And if we can't get to that consensus, then maybe we just don't add it.
And I understand what you're saying, but the suggestion of giving peer-reviewed sites is not outside of our scope because it's already there.
Well, it does because the legislation requires that we consult peer-reviewed journals. It doesn't say our 2 things that we have to consult is peer-reviewed journals and our stakeholders. If our stakeholders want to look at those crowdsourced sources as well, they are welcome to do that. But again, that's one of those things that's going to look different in every district.
Okay,
so
what I'm hearing, I mean, I know we're not going to reach a consensus. So
understandably so. I mean, that's the point of the statute, and that's the point of it being there, and that's the point of the harmful to minor statute, because these are things that are hard and they do look different and they are different for everybody and every family. That's the point of it. So it is hard. So it's rightfully so that we're having a hard time agreeing. But I guess my thought is just that if we stick to the scope of this work group, we are not being asked to redefine what is already out there. And we are not asked to make those suggestions to the district. It was just a thought to add those opt-in, opt-out, and those other suggestions that that districts could do. But if we can't agree on it, then we shouldn't put it in there.
So, and again, I want to add that the slides that the 3 work group members created will be sent to senior leadership. And if they decide that they should be in there, then, you know, they'll be added in there. And then it'll continue to go through the approval process through all of our different offices. So I would like to propose that we leave the training as is for now, just because I know that we're not going to, I don't think we are going to reach a consensus on any of these items. Is anyone opposed to that?
I would agree, but my email about my suggestion, I think, is an easy conversation if we want an easy conversation to have.
I would love to, Chris. Unfortunately, we only have 5 more minutes. I was really, really hoping we would be able to get to the actual training and make edits to the training that we already have in process. I mean, these ideas and these concepts are all super important. I know we all have very strong feelings on either side about these issues, but we do need to address the actual training that's going to be in front of media specialists. And not that the bullet points are not going to be in the actual training. I don't mean to make it sound like that at all. But we did have 2 things on the agenda and we did not get to one of them. We do only have about 5 minutes left. So we're gonna have to talk about the training at some other time next week.
Amber, can I just say one
go
quick
ahead.
thing? What we saw demonstrated today, why at the onset of the work group, my push would be there's still work, I think, to be done. And I think it's important. That is why I just struggle. I will go on record to say about a burden. What I want to do is get a high quality product for our media specialists. Like they're counting on us to follow the law. And so in order to do that, that means we might, I think, have to either go longer or be in person. And so I would push and implore this work group to say, today's a perfect example of there's still work to be done. And I heard, right, we're at the end, was good. This work group's done an amazing amount of work, right? So the majority, I think, of the training, however you define majority, right, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%, right, of that work is done. But I just think clearly there's some pieces we want to button up. So I'm excited for Amber to get out some proposed dates and times, whether it's LinkedIn or in person. It's easier, I think, to do in person, that we can share the slides and the decks, and they're all there, and the public, there's copies of them. So I just would challenge us to think about that, because we can get this, I think, buttoned up if we spend a good chunk of time together going over these last few pieces about what should be included. Because I actually heard different things about opt-in, opt-out. I heard some folks that want it. I heard some folks that don't want it. I heard one say yes, and I really don't want it. But I actually think I heard both, with some parents say, or folks say, I could have that in there. So I think this work group still has some work to do on that, versus just saying we didn't reach a consensus. I think there's conversation about it. That's what I would end on saying.
Well, I will follow up with the work group about, whether we're thinking about meeting face to face, or I need to find out if we're able to extend next week's meeting or schedule another meeting for next week. I'm not sure how all that works legally, but I will find out and I will email you as soon as possible about that. We're going to go to public comment now. We have 200 people on this meeting, so members of the public, do we have a lot of opinions? Okay, yeah, we're gonna do 30 seconds per comment. Please make it concise, make it fast. If we're not going to allow any attacks on work group members or on anyone else. So if your comment is in that vein, please, you can just go ahead and put your hand down now. You may be muted if you decide to attack a work group member. So we're going to go ahead and Cousins? Yes. Jennifer S. You are unmuted. Go ahead and make your comment.
Sorry, I'm trying to get to my screen. I'm so sorry. Yes, so my name is Jennifer Strafford, and I am a parent of a junior at Satellite High School, and I thank you all for your time to work through all this. But I'm, I thought the opt-in would be a good idea, but as mentioned by Michelle and others, when it's harmful to children, why are we even allowing it in our public school libraries? This pornographic, very sexually explicit material, I think it needs to be, that's something that should be in the privacy of the home to parents and guardians and that situation. And then somebody said, well, we need to keep in mind the interest of the reader. Well, it's not like we have, you know, a bunch of Playboys and Hustler magazines, because I'm sure that would be interesting to a lot of the teenage boys around there. Nor do I think we have the anarchist cookbooks, backyard ballistics, or the doctrine of fascism.
Jennifer, I'm
If
so
somebody
sorry
was
to cut you
interested in
off,
reading
but we
those-
do need to move on to the next person, who is
Carry on.
Carrie R. Go ahead. And I'm sorry to cut you guys off. I want to hear as many people as we can. Carrie R., go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I basically want to just say that I also agree with the fact that you guys, we need to get a definition before we can create training material. You need to know what pornographic means and what it applies to the statute. I also agree with the fact that maybe you do the keyword search. And I also agree with Michelle Beavers with basically everything she says. We can't keep.
Okay, Carrie, thank you so much. I'm sorry to cut you off. The next person, go ahead. Katie.
I also agree with Michelle. If these books have pornographic material in them, sexually explicit material, violent sexual encounters, pedophilia, the list goes on and on. This stuff is no good for kids, and it doesn't belong in our schools. And I'm sorry, but there's a reason why there's distrust with the media specialists. Books like Genderqueer got in because of the policies that we have now. So it just is what it is.
Thank you, Carrie. Moving on, the next person is Tabitha Brown. Who next? No left turn in education. Bruce, go ahead. Carrie, go ahead.
I wanted to say I agree with Michelle, and also as we're discussing what's appropriate, what's inappropriate for children, if the material in question is inappropriate at work, if you were to download it, send it to your coworker, and then potentially lose your job or be charged with sexual harassment, then it's not appropriate for children. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Stefana, go ahead. Stefana,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Yes. I want to say I do not agree with Michelle Beavers or Jennifer Pippin. I am a parent of 2 kids in elementary school, and the parameters that they want to put into the training would limit AP literature curriculum. It would limit Romeo and Juliet and things that are on the ALA best list because there is sexual conduct in there and there is suicide in there. And so I believe this should be a district level decision and you should stick to the scope of the program. I do trust my media specialist. And when I give my kids over to school for 8 hours a day, I trust that they can have all access to the resources that are available in that school. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off. Thank you for that. Jen Parrish, go ahead. Jen Parrish, go ahead. Carrie Gustafson, go ahead. Carrie, go ahead.
Alex.
Alex.
You want a minute, you're done?
Yeah, just a quick buffing and stuff. Oh, thanks.
Carrie, you're live on the call. Go ahead. Okay. Who's next? Alex?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so regarding opt-in and opt-out, while obviously I agree with Michelle, there should not be any option whether to opt-in or opt-out from sexually explicit or age-inappropriate materials. Should this work group decide to put any slide regarding the option for districts to opt-in or opt-out, they should include pros and cons of both options and come to some general consensus of what those pros and cons are for both options. And then in terms of obviously not adding a list of banned books, you can definitely reference existing books that contain material that
Okay,
defies
thank you
or
very much,
deviates from
Alex.
staff.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Thank you. Robert Goodman, go ahead. And Caroline, you're next. Get ready. Robert Goodman, go ahead. Okay, Caroline.
Hey, okay.
Can you hear me
y'all-
now? Hi, this is Robert. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Robert.
Okay, adding on to what Alex said, with opt-out, the book could still be on the shelf so a child can read it. With opt-in, and we're not talking about Harry Potter or Romeo and Juliet. We're talking about books that have bestiality, pedophilia. There's a book in Hillsborough County that teaches children how to use the Grindr app for hookups. So opt-in is the only option for those if they're remaining in the library. We have an R rating system for movies. Children cannot see those without explicit permission
Okay,
from
you,
their
Robert.
parents.
I'm sorry to
This
cut you off. Caroline, go ahead.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Great. Well, I just want to say thank you. I really appreciate this committee. I thank you guys for your time and your dedication to healing the relationship between the parents and the school board system. Kudos to all of y'all on the board. I do have a story that I think is super important for everyone to hear, and it's not one that anyone else has shared. My niece was in the situation at her elementary school where she has a shared school between elementary and middle school, where a lot of our schools have this these days where it goes from elementary all the way up through.
Maria, I'm very sorry. I have to cut you off after the 30 seconds. We're going to take 3 more public comments. Maria, go ahead. It's going to be Maria, Kia, and then Melissa. Maria, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I agree with Michelle 100%. I have 4 children that have went through the schools, and I still have 3 of them in the schools. And I find it very disheartening that we're even needing to go through all this as parents to try to be at a point where we can feel comfortable that these books are not available to children of all ages. And it just baffles me that it's taking so much effort to get books that have such inappropriate content away from the
Thank you
kids.
for your comment. I'm sorry to cut you off. Kia, go ahead. Melissa, you are next. We're going to end after Melissa.
Hi, I'm a parent of a student, and can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm a parent of a student that is in 6th grade, and I just wanted to say what I seem to be hearing a lot of is my opinion, my opinion. I'm not a librarian. I'm not a media specialist. And I think that we really need to lean on the professionals here and define. It's not up to parents to define what a serious literary book is, because I think that what they're saying is it's my opinion what serious is.
Kia, thank you for your comments. I'm sorry to cut you off. Melissa, go ahead. Melissa, go ahead. Okay, we're just going to go ahead and end it here then. Thank you very much. I apologize to those of you that had your hand raised that were not able to speak publicly. You may email me if you would like to have your comments as part of the record of this meeting. Again, appreciate all the work the work group has done. Appreciate members of the public that have spent their hour with us learning about what we've done so far and your comments thus far. Work group, I will be in contact with you very shortly about further meetings. So thank you very much, you guys. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Amber.
Thanks. I can't talk.
Thank you, Dr. Burns.
She muted you. That's funny. Oh, am I still on? Just kidding. You guys have a great day.